HeatherAsh Amara, thank you so much for joining us again. We're very grateful to have you with us on Mentors channel.
Thanks so much, Shannon. So glad to be here.
The big news right now that's everywhere is obviously the coronavirus and the pandemic of fear that's happening, as well as the virus itself. Can you unpack that a little bit for us and kind of what we're going through individually and collectively?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say especially in the Western world and America, we're dealing with situations we've never dealt with before. This is more familiar in other countries, but the amount of lockdown that we're seeing, the amount of restriction of freedom, the fear around finances and what's going to happen with the entire economy. Like there's a lot of layers of what's happening right now. And it's really important for us to start separating out what's true versus what's our story. So the fear creates more and more story where we do what I call go into disaster mind. And the disaster mind is like looking at the worst case scenario and worrying about it, or looking at similar things in the past and comparing it to that. And when it's built on fear, we can create all sorts of stories that create more and more anxiety and more suffering. Mm-hmm. Versus when we start to say, all right, what do I know is true here? And start to really live day to day, focused on what's happening and doing what I call aligning with life. So one of the chapters in my book, Warrior Goddess Training, is, I was thinking about this morning, I'm like, it's such a perfect chapter and topic, because aligning with life doesn't mean this shouldn't be happening, life should be different. It's about taking a deep breath and going, all right, what is life throwing at us? Mm-hmm. And life is throwing a big curveball at all of us right now that nobody could have predicted. Yeah. So how do we navigate realizing we're all in this together? Mm-hmm. And how do we navigate going forward, staying in as much truth as possible, mm-hmm. and taking lots of deep breaths and being creative?
Yeah. Yes, definitely taking this opportunity to explore the sides of ourselves that perhaps don't get as much attention as they could when we're hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yes, exactly. It was funny. I was talking with a friend of mine who lives in France. And I said to her, well, I don't know what you're doing next week. And we both laughed because we both know what we're doing next week. We're going to be at home.
Right.
So, and both she and I are like huge travelers. So we were laughing. We're like, well, here's the benefit. Mm-hmm. We know where everybody's going to be. So how do we reach out and support each other and really stay connected, even if we can't physically be around people in the same way?
Yeah.
I'd love to changing.
Yeah, I'd love to go deeper into that because, we're such social creatures and we now more than ever need that deep connection, but we're being told to stay physically separate. Are there, besides the obvious social media, are there other ways that you can see us staying connected and deeply connected and supporting each other?
Absolutely. So, there's many ways to do it, but I'll say a couple of main ways. A couple of main ways is to do things like feel into who are the people that are the most supportive, that you feel the most connection with, and do FaceTime with them, do Zoom calls, do face-to-face virtually. Mm-hmm. Or if you can get to them, we can meet with small groups of people. So that may be something that you can do is if you have a neighbor and you decide you're going to go in with each other, mm-hmm. that you create those sort of connections that are family, that are the people that are closest to you. And then also keep reaching out to who are the people that you maybe haven't connected with for a long time or that are important to you, but you haven't spent time reaching out to. And this would be a great time to do that. Mm-hmm. And to have conversations that aren't just around what's happening right now.
Right. That's a big thing that I've noticed is we're reaching out and we're just discussing this kind of hysteria and our anxiety and what's happening. How can we reach out and connect on more supportive topics when we're all kind of still piecing together how we're going to get through the next few weeks or months?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be sweet to do things like say, okay, let's take 10 minutes to just talk about what's happening immediately in our lives and the fears that we have. Mm-hmm. And that each person just shares, this is what my update is. This is what my update is. These are my fears. And then to say, what what are you excited about?
Mm-hmm.
What are you opening up to in your life? What transition do you feel like this marks for you? So to start generating questions that you can go deeper with each other in terms of a relationship.
I really feel that. I really feel that instead of bypassing it, saying, yes, we're at this threshold, but what is this marking for you? How are we, acknowledging this? I really love that. So let's talk about this fear journey. So we just talked about kind of camaraderie and unpacking it with each other and holding space, but you have some remarkable expertise when it comes to this area. Could you share some more on that?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I teach that I've been facilitating for many, many years is fire walking.
Mm.
And it's basically build a big fire, burn the fire down to coals, and then teach people about how to be in relationship with the fire. I work a lot with people around their fears
Mm-hmm.
to understand that the fear doesn't have to stop you. Fear is just energy. And so we can use the fear even as energy to motivate ourselves to go forward, even through challenging times. And one piece that's really important with the fire walk is that you never know if you're going to walk or not. You just show up with what's occurring and make a decision as you're going. And I feel like it's really important for us in relationship to the coronavirus and to the quarantine and to that we just need to show up every day.
Mm.
And you don't need to know what you're going to do or what it's going to look like. You're just willing to show up and listen.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an excellent time for all of us to slow down and to face our own inner fears, not just around, the thing that's happening is only one layer of the fears that most of us have.
Mm-hmm.
That we have fear of death, we have fear of being abandoned, we have fear of our relationship ending, we have fear of not living our purpose. And if we just focus at, my fear is only around this, we're missing an opportunity to go deeper with ourselves and to really ask, well, what am I afraid of? What am I running away from right now? That because I have an opportunity, I can actually turn towards and start naming what my fears are, not to bury yourself in them,
Right.
but just to acknowledge them, just to say, yes, I'm afraid of this.
Right. And I think, that's huge, is just to say, yes, this is fearful. And I'm fearful of this, but also, I think, how do we practice that vulnerability and that acknowledgement if we are leaders of our family? Like, how can we unpack that with each other as parents, in front of our children who maybe haven't seen us fearful, without kind of transferring this?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to have both. So for people out there that are holding together other people,
Mm-hmm.
that you have outside support so that you can really lean into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that you also share your fears with your kids or with your community or with your family.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to put it on them, but you can say, mommy's is feeling scared right now because this is something we've never dealt with before. This is
Right.
new. And that helps them to understand and put it into context.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's a really powerful teaching as a parent, that you're showing the vulnerability and the fear, and you're not making them hold it.
Right.
But you are sharing it. And then to ask them, what are you afraid of? In general, I mean, this could be also an incredible way to open up your kids to have more conversations with you. And I'm already hearing that of moms that have been telling me that their kids are suddenly having conversations with them that they may not have had before this started.
Right. Kids and peers and, anybody really just going deep into the substance of our society and what our biggest, deepest fears are. And, the headlines are very frightening. It's escalated over the last few days since we last spoke. One thing I'd like you to touch on again is that you invited us to go through our worst case scenario one time. And I'd like you to reshare that because I think it was really impactful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one trick that I use with myself is if I'm afraid of something is I give myself permission to go towards worst case scenario 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So to use my imagination to go all the way down the line to what's going to happen. What am I really afraid of? And so that might be, I have allergies, so forgive me.
It's okay.
The allergies are really bad here.
We're remote, so I'm not worried.
Yes, I know. I've been laughing. I'm like sneezing and everyone's like on my team is like, oh my God, you sneezed. I'm like, I'm by myself. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
So that place of giving yourself permission go. Go all the way through it. Write it down, think about it, feel it in your body. And you give yourself permission to do that once. So you go through worst case scenario and then just take a breath and go, all right, it's going to be okay. Even if it's worst case scenario, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And then anytime your mind then tries to go back to worst case scenario, you just say, nope, we've done that once. We're not going there. We're going to now stay focused on what we want to create, what we're going to visualize, what's possible. So it helps us to stop running away. And then it also helps us to put a period and just stay present in the moment. Mm-hmm. Rather than cycling the fear right here, we can be no fear. Thank you so much. I'm putting my attention here now.
Now, many of us perhaps struggle with that kind of redirecting our thoughts and our energy. Do you have any tools or tips for kind of really stopping that hamster wheel in our head that's running that worst case scenario over and over and bring us back to this present moment?
Yeah, one of the best things to do is not to fight it, not to be like, I'm bad for doing that, or I shouldn't do that, but to just, hi, sweetheart, that's scared. We're coming back. And we can even give that part of you a voice, a name, a character. Something that is really fun is to create a character for that part of you that's always afraid. Mm-hmm. And you give it substance, basically. So you can go, oh no, Monica, we're not going there right now. Come back. Yeah. And it's like an annoying friend or, your toddler that's like, what does this mean? What does this mean? You're like, no, sweetheart. So you're gentle but firm.
I love that. I think that's really great. So we'll begin to name our fear personas and treat them lovingly and nurturingly. So,
yes. Yeah. Make good boundaries.
Definitely. I love that. Anything else you'd like to share? Perhaps what we could all expect on the other side of this personally as a society? What's our best case scenario?
I feel like best case scenario is that we all realize how interdependent we are and how fragile the system is in terms of, we have this idea that it's, everything's always going to be the way it is. And it's actually, now we're learning, things can change really quickly. Mm-hmm. So my prayer for this time is we all become a lot more grateful for what we have, to not take things for granted, take each other for granted. And that we also start working together more as global community to support each other and to start erasing the lines that we've created. And I think that's really possible.
I do too. I think that's beautiful. And I think, we're starting to see it, and it's unfortunate that it's taken something like this. But the outpouring of support for people who are, maybe unable to get groceries or not advised to leave their home that I've seen even just locally is really heartwarming. I haven't seen anything. The outpouring of support that I've seen locally is just so beautiful, and neighbors stepping up and offerings of, we're in Arizona, so it's warmer, offerings of backyard produce and shared toilet paper and resources, and come use our batting cage and go, let's still continue to foster our community, even when we can't support our local establishments so much. So,
yeah, I think that's so important, and such a beautiful thing that crisis brings out is the connection and the reaching out for help. And one thing that I've been encouraging my community to do is to join Nextdoor, which is an app that, I think a lot of people are on, but if you're not on it, it's an excellent way to get to know your neighbors and to be able to just say, hey, does anybody need a grocery run? Does anybody need a phone call? Does anybody need their meds to be picked up? So that the people that don't have resources, or go put notes in people's, on people's doors.
Right.
That may be just go knock on doors and put a note on it. And so people have a choice of, yes, I need help. So you can say, here's my phone number, call me.
Well, and I think a good point is when I get on Nextdoor, I'm immediately taken to my community's viewpoint instead of kind of the global doom and gloom. And I see people are healthy, people are helping each other. There's abundance in the form of shared resources and community. And I think that's another way to stay present is what's happening right around me, what's happening in my home, what's happening in my neighborhood, what's happening, and trying to really stay grounded in that.
Absolutely. And I think that's, you're so right, Shannon, that it's really overwhelming to look at the global picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's really overwhelming. Some people can hold the complexity of it. So if you're a person that can hold the complexity, great, knock yourself out, go read a bunch of stuff. And if you find that you're getting off center, you're going into more and more fear, stop
Right.
looking at the global picture. It's going to do whatever it's going to do without your participation in it, honestly. And what you can do, the most action you can take is locally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the global picture may or may not affect, your local.
Right?
Right.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
so I love that too.
You don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I really got this because I grew up traveling, and it was during some election in the United States that was really, really challenging. And I was in the Philippines, and I was talking to some of the farmers there, and they kind of looked at me because I was talking about the elections or something. And they're like, what election? Of course they didn't know. Like, why I thought they would know what was going on in the United States is if the United States was the hub of all worldly knowledge.
Right.
So for us to really understand, there's also, thousands of people that are not being affected by this at all.
Right. And who may not even be aware of it happening.
Exactly.
I've also
Which does, yeah. So it's just to put it into perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely the takeaway I'm taking from this is limit your media exposure and monitor the sources that you're taking in, and try to balance positive, supportive news sources, maybe their peers or family members, with this kind of global doom and gloom that is hovering so heavily right now.
Yeah.
And
you
read some good books.
And read some good books, exactly. Listen to podcasts, like do all the things. Rest.
Mm-hmm.
Just rest. That would be such a gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
For all of us, is to get some more rest and to then open up more to intuition and listening. Because I also hope that this is a big reset for us to get more in touch with our wisdom, our inner wisdom, and have access to that.
Yeah, I definitely took some time for that this morning. Just said, I've been reacting the last few days, and I think we all have been. Things are shutting down. We're reacting, preparing to kind of hunker down. And today I was like, I need to take this time and go within and really kind of reset. And added some good books to my list, and would love to hear more about your books. So maybe this is a good time to kind of share about those and your work with your retreats and other offerings that you're supporting people who are looking to go deeper within themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a couple. I have a lot of books, but the main ones are Warrior Goddess Training, which is specifically for women, and it's 10 lessons to become the woman you're meant to be. So it's a fabulous book. And then the recent one that I just wrote is called The Warrior Heart Practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really incredible for this time because it's a technique, it's a practice to help people separate out the emotion from the story from the truth, and get clear about what their intent is so they can go back and be in relationship to the story and the situation in a different way. So I'm really proud of that book. It just came out in January, so pretty timely.
I'll post the link with this video as well, because I think everyone could benefit from that. And then retreats, I know probably are on hold for a while, but you just are off the heels of a retreat.
Yeah, I do a lot of leadership training courses and weekend workshops. Yeah, everything's been basically postponed through June. But I'm doing online stuff, and I'm actually going to start live streaming on Friday. Excellent. To just connect to people and kind of have work parties and dance parties and yoga, and so people can tune in. I'm not sure what platform I'm even going to use yet, but people can check out my website or go to my Facebook page, HeatherAshAmara.com.
Perfect. We'd love to share those links as well. I'm going a little bit deeper into your story. If you've got a few more minutes, I'd love to kind of hear in a brief version, or as long as you want to go into it, but your story, how you are, got to the place you are, how you discovered your gifts in serving this way, and just kind of your journey.
Yeah, my journey's been an unusual one just because I was raised in Southeast Asia, traveled around a lot with my parents, came to the United States to go to college when I was 17. And when I first got to the States, I was like, what is wrong here? Like, everyone's disconnected. I feel disconnected. And I didn't have language for it. I just felt something was was off. And I got into politics really big and became a big social activist, which was beautiful. But I realized a couple years in that I was angry, all my friends were angry, and nothing was really changing. And that was when I started studying different spiritual traditions and getting really curious about where my what my ancestors believed. And then I started opening up for looking for tools. What are the most potent tools to help transformation happen?
Mm.
It was for myself in the beginning, and pretty young, I started sharing. I just loved everything that I was learning, that I started sharing it. And so it's the way I got drafted into teaching, just because people kept showing up. So I'm really blessed. I've been teaching for the last 30 years. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to share the tools and the guidance.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for joining me again today. It's a pleasure speaking with you. And we look forward to sharing your message with our viewers and sharing the links that you also spoke about. So, thank you for the support.
You're so welcome, Shannon. Thank you for all that you offer through the Mentor channel, and just blessings to everyone. And keep remembering we're all in this, and there's support if you reach out for it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.